Hello everyone, this is my first video talking through some of my max patches and maybe some other stuff in the future. And this one here is a visual to audio synthesizer. I'll just quickly play around with it now so you can hear some very basic beginning intro pieces. You can get lots of different stuff. Even the tin's got some nice stuff to offer. Those high frequencies. But I feel like there's a lot of potential, a lot of maybe ways to get that noise down and sort of start smoothing things out a bit, and maybe doing some more finely tuned things, which is sort of what I'm going to start playing around with. I'm really interested in the noise aspect as well, but I think it would be nice to sort of try and develop things a bit, maybe get some less harsh sounds. So let me talk a bit about the way it's working. I've got my camera coming in using OBS Studio. I've just set it up as a on a load bang, coming in straight from OBS, and it's that's pretty straightforward. Feel free to pause at any time and just rebuild what I've done here. There's loads of videos on setting up OBS with your phone. So yeah, I've got basically my phone on a kind of a stand, camera pointing down at a very hacky setup on my desk. I've got a tin on some tins, just propping it up, and I'm basically using this. I'll build a more elegant kind of rig hopefully in the future, but for now I'm just exploring kind of the potential of different approaches to playing with graphic sound through drawings and patterns and different materials. So this is the kind of basic setup is I can play with a margin width, and I'm kind of taking a slice from the center of my image matrix and I set the width of it here. So if you can see down here, I've got two slices running into this submatrix and then again into another kind of patch here. So I can set my margin width. So this is the amount of pixels it's reading in my margin, and the amount of kind of detail it's reading from. And then I'm basically averaging that across each row. So I'm kind of smoothing and smearing and blending it out, and it kind of acts like a filter. You can see these, I'm only reading off one plane, plane 2, which I think is either R or G. I can't remember if it's like a different way, or it could be B. I might need to play around, because I think that G plane is the best one to read if you just want to get like high contrast, or if you're just trying to basically get a grayscale value out of it, which is what I'm trying to do. So as you can see, the wider the width, the kind of the harsher and the more smeared out these signals are on this. I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see that. On this second averaged matrix. And basically the way that I'm transforming that into sound is I'm using jit.peek to scan down this margin very, very quickly and just read these values so that it's like a long form wave table, basically. And so yeah, I'll set the margin down pretty low, margin down quite low to begin with, and I'm kind of filtering a little because it gets very harsh. There's a bit of ramping that you can get between, especially if it kind of cuts off at black at the top and like a very light color at the bottom, or vice versa. You obviously get like a clip or like a ramp where it's just where it's kind of not really aligned, and there's like a bit of sort of interference artifacts from that sort of behavior. What should I talk about? I'll go through the margin a little bit, my subpatcher, although I built it quite a while ago for a different patch, so might take me a while to sort of figure out how to talk it through. So I've got my margin width integer coming in here, and that's basically so I'm taking the width of the image matrix here, I'm splitting it in two, and I'm creating a kind of an offset, and this offset, so I can basically read through the middle of the image, and this offset is changing whenever I'm changing the margin to sort of account for the margin width, so it stays central. And I've got, this is like a little neat extra for my averaging submatrix that I've made. I'm not quite sure. I think it's all pretty, hopefully, it's not straightforward, but if you want to copy this again, feel free to. You probably make it a lot neater than I am. And then, so yeah, I'm taking it into this submatrix, which I'm reading in jit.peek. You can see all the values change in cell block down here, jit.cellblock. It's really handy for debugging. And so jit.peek is an object that seems to be specifically for reading visual, so reading from image matrices and transforming to audio, which is really exciting. It makes things very simple for that kind of thing. And I've kind of got it, I've made it default 24 hertz. So this phaser is reading, I've times it by 1080 because that is the resolution of the y-axis down here. But I'm sweeping across at 24 hertz. That's because my big fascination, and the reason why I'm doing this is kind of all stems back to working with analogue optical sound technology, which I'll definitely do some videos about soon. But that's basically, it's doing exactly this, but it's on analogue film, and that's the way a lot of 16 and 35mm audio is sort of recorded and projected in cinemas. And it's basically, you kind of have a visual soundtrack down the side of a film strip. Just look it up if you want to find out more, and hopefully, as I say, I'll do some videos about it. But that's why I've defaulted it at 24 hertz. But I think 24, it's always got this kind of, oh, I didn't say why. It's because projectors film, they project usually at 24 frames a second. So I guess, you know, if the film is running through at 24 frames a second, then that soundtrack was being read at roughly 24 hertz if you're splitting it up frame by frame. So I think I really do love the kind of machine rumbles you get when you read this type of pattern into, you know, at 24 hertz. It's got like a real, it sounds like engines. It's like got a very kind of old analog, like chuggy quality to it. But the higher you start reading, the more it kind of smooths out, and you can start, it has less of those kind of like rumbling disturbances, which I like. But so I'm kind of reading it at around 40 to 90, just playing with those sorts of frequencies, and I'm keeping them quite low. I don't want this to be a standard wavetable where it's just you're making a just like a one wave cycle. I quite like the idea that when it's a more long form wavetable that's reading a bit slower, then you get to play with melody, you get to play with sort of tuning playing with frequencies rather than just wave shapes. And that kind of introduces a lot of interesting scope for playing with visual patterns, because anything that's repeated in any kind of a regular way starts, you start bringing in harmonics and frequencies. So I'll just play with this little drawing I've made, which you can see I made a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter square. And I just wanted to play with seeing, this is all for 24 frames a second, but I've made these little calculations where I'm trying to kind of figure out the pitch of different frequencies. So I tried to make like a D, and an E to see if I sweep this from left to right, you could hear those frequency shifts, and I think it works. So I will play you that, although this desk is on a slope, so it's kind of really annoying. It keeps shifting out of whack. Right, let me play it for you and see. Oh, is it playing? I can't hear it. Okay. So, as this is my first video, I'm having a lot of issues with the recording and audio. So that's why it's like, I'm doing a lot of cuts, a lot of edits. So sorry if it's annoying. So yeah, let me sweep this through. Pretty sure this is like, maybe I'll zoom this camera out a tiny bit more. I'm not sure if that worked, but I think that's roughly it. So yeah, if I start out at the edge, so yeah, and it's A, D, and E, but then I had a bit of extra space, so I split up those end frequencies, the A and the E at the edges, which kind of is, I just wanted to play a bit with wave folding, at the edge. So let me bring that margin down, and then I'll do it once with a small margin and once with quite a wide margin. And then with a wider margin, which is going to be smeared out, so you're getting a lot of like crossover between the frequencies as you sweep them. Okay, let me turn that off. So yeah, obviously that wasn't an A, a D, and an E because I was sweeping at a little bit higher frequency than 24, so my calculations were off, but I feel like you can definitely hear those harmonic intervals between the three notes, and I feel like it kind of reminds me of if you have ever played Ocarina of Time, it's like when you fall into the Deku tree, that filter sweep, there's kind of sweeping between different peaks, but yeah, I feel like it kind of works, and I've been doing some other experiments with patterns and materials. So yesterday or the day before, I was playing around a bit with just testing out whether you can print onto acetate, because I feel like that's going to be really useful when playing around with this, especially doing interference patterns and moire illusions, that kind of thing. And so I just did a test where I printed out the same pattern onto paper and one onto acetate, and there's a lot of nice phasing you can get from it when you start shifting things around or rotating. I mean, this is rough, but you can kind of imagine it's been fun to play with. Let me get this a little higher. Obviously I need to make some kind of buffer to stop that from clicking every time I do that. Maybe I'll keep that where it is. There's a lot of bursts when it's when the top and bottom are very different values, but there's some nice phasing stuff. I don't know, I haven't tried all of these patterns, but also when you get the reflections, that's interesting. So yeah, playing with light and shadow, it's going to be fun. And just being able to play with the depth. But yeah, that's one thing. And then last night, yesterday, I was playing a bit around with, as you can see on this tin, spirographic spirographic drawing. So I was wondering whether maybe the geometry in the spirograph would create some interesting synthesis stuff. It's not focusing very well, but maybe that one's too complicated, but I feel like there's a lot of potential for that kind of playing with that kind of geometry. Maybe that's more of a wavetable thing, like a more standard wavetable. Let me try this. Oh, it's frozen. Oh, weird. There we go. Lots of things like that happening. That one's nice. And you can see even on the tin there's stuff going on. So I could just use that, but I wanted to play around. And this is quite a good example. I mean, I'm not going to do it yet, but maybe for the future I can make like an RGB one, a polyphonic one, in which case all of these types of things will be really useful. Let's see what this one's doing. It's pretty dense. But yeah, you get the idea. I'm excited to carry on and do some more experiments, playing with different materials and patterns, maybe some textiles. I feel like there's a lot of interesting things you can do with stretching printed patterns and all sorts. And yeah, lots of stuff with 3D light and shadow, anything that's kind of regular pattern. So yeah, that's where I'm up to at the minute. Hopefully I'll post some more videos of this patch, maybe in a more advanced state, with some kind of denoisification of the, especially those like wraparound ends. Hopefully I can blur between them. I need to figure that out. But yeah, that's where I've got to at the moment. And yeah, I'll be back soon.